On today's episode, Faye Stenning and Jess O'Connell from Grit Coaching. Welcome to the OCR Report podcast. The OCR Report is the live stream home for the sport of obstacle course racing. Become a member at patreon.com/the OCR Report and help us ensure OCR is here for the next 100 years. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the OCR Report. Boom. Welcome back to the OCR Report podcast. My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening. Very excited about 30 podcasts hath September. 30 podcasts in 30 days from the OCR Report. It's pretty cool. All the other podcasts in the OCR Report: Obstacle Ring Adventures, Nitty Gritty Training, OCR Talk, Strength and Speed, Evan Preparis, Fran and Carlo get OCR Adjacent, and Jack Goris has a podcast. Every podcast is doing episodes this month, and we will have one a month, all month long. So if you want to hear every single episode, all 30 episodes, 30 pods in 30 days, so make sure you subscribe to all those podcasts. Obstacle Running Adventures, Nitty Gritty Training, OCR Talk, Strength and Speed, Fran and Carlo get OCR Adjacent, and Jack Goris has a podcast. And you will have more podcast content this month than you know what to do with. Before we talk to our guests, if you want to email me, my email is will@theocrreport.com. You can follow the OCR Report on Instagram @theOCR Report. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/theOCR Report. You can leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And I would appreciate it.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
Anyway, I hope the review is good. Faye Stenning and Jess O'Connell are our guests today. Very excited to welcome them to the show. They run Grit Coaching. They have a podcast called Nitty Gritty Training, and we talk with them. I can get into their backgrounds now. We talk about it on the show. Faye was an elite athlete at the top level of Spartan racing for many years. Jess, elite athlete as well. She ran in the Olympics. She talks about that in our conversation. Very excited to talk with Faye and Jess. Let's go to the phones. Faye Stenning and Jess O'Connell run Grit Coaching, whose custom run and strength program harnesses Olympic insights and expert education. They train road and trail runners, obstacle course athletes, and hybrid athletes of any level. Faye and Jess, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Nice to see you, Will.
I know, it's good to talk. We're talking on the podcast, and we've talked a lot offline, and then even once a month we do a Instagram Live, but it's fun to sit down for an extended conversation and talk to you guys a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're excited. Thanks for having us. We've been enjoying working with the OCR Report, so it's been fun.
Yeah.
Let's catch people up. The OCR Report and Grit Coaching kind of joined up about 2-3 months ago, and you guys run Training Tuesdays for us. Every Tuesday, there's a training post on your guys' Instagram and on our Instagram that you prepare for our audience. And then once a month, we do an Instagram Q&A. People sending questions. It's actually coming up next week, I think. We're pretty quick. And I've just loved the relationship we're starting to build there.
Totally.
Yeah, no,
I love Q&A day. It's so fun answering people's questions. I love doing that.
So what we do for Q&A day is on your guys' Instagram, you solicit questions and people send you questions. And then we do the same over on the OCR Report Instagram. And what I do is I like to sneak my questions in as if they come from the audience. And that way, I'm telling you guys don't know I do this. I'm telling you now.
I knew it.
So if there's ever like a really stupid question, I'm like, yeah, I don't know where that came from. That's wow. Who asked that? Wow. It's probably mine.
Yeah, it's funny when I I used to do sometimes these Q&As like back when I was racing for various companies, and I would always put like, ask me anything, and I get the weirdest, like sometimes like kind of creepy questions. So now I'm like trying to remember, ask us anything training related, because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What sort of shoes do you like? I'm into feet. Like, no.
Oh yeah, can we see your feet in the shoes? Like what? Like yeah, no, good. They work. That's all you need to know. Jess, can you talk about your background? You have kind of a unique background among the OCR trainer athletes that we've that are in the sport. What's your athletic background?
Sure. Yeah. So I was a professional track and field athlete for 7 years. My whole career was about 16 years long, though. So I was very lucky to represent Canada on 15 different national teams in track, cross country, and road running. Highlighted by the 2016 Olympics, a couple World Championships, Commonwealth Games, Pan Am Games, World University Games, kind of every major games, which was incredible. Got to travel the world and train and race full time. My main event was the 5K. Faye's gonna say it if I don't. My PB was 15, or is, I guess, your PB is forever, 15:06 in the 5K, which I was very proud of. And I also had the Canadian record in the indoor 3K and 2 mile, which was one of my career highlights. So a bit of a different background to a lot of OCR racers because I focused on track and road running. But I also got a master's degree while I was training in exercise physiology. And so it's kind of a fun challenge to bring knowledge from track training and road training and whatnot to OCR, because that's actually why Faye and I started Grit Coaching. We saw a huge gap in quality of training for OCR athletes, because a lot came from gym backgrounds, a lot came from CrossFit, or kind of just piecing together programs. And we were like, wait a second, we know how to do this. We have huge sporting backgrounds, so let's help people with the knowledge that we have.
Your PB for the 5K is 15:06. You just said.
Yeah.
When I run a 5K, when I'm at I look at my watch and it says 15:06. I've just gotten past like that, where the first mile always sucks. Like at least for me, no matter how fit I am, the first mile is always rough.
Mm.
That's when I look down at my watch. I'm like, all right, I can run this out. I'll be all right. That's an
You
impressive.
might need a longer warm up then.
Yeah, no, I'm not a good athlete. I didn't. Yeah, the thing about running in the Olympics, and I say this having never competed in the Olympics, is that's something that can never, like, for the rest of your life. You can, oh yeah, I'm an Olympic athlete. I got my Eagle Scout when I was 13 years old, and for the rest of my life, I'm like, yeah, I know, I was an Eagle Scout. Like, I haven't done anything with Boy Scouts in 30 years, but yeah. And it's an accomplishment that is on your like being an Olympian is on your resume for the rest of your life. And that's a cool thing to do.
Thank you. Yeah, it drives me crazy. Like when people say former Olympian, because I'm like, no, for life, which a lot of the accolades and stuff like don't really fuel my ego, but that's one thing that I'm like, no, for life, Olympian for life.
Faye, your background before you got into Grit Coaching, I remember watching you on NBC. Not every weekend. It seemed like every weekend, but I remember watching you and Lindsay Webster and like on TV, like full on television on the couch, competing against the top athletes in the sport. Tell me about that.
Yeah. My background. So Jessica and I met like when we competed in high school together. So I started running. I mean, I've been running my whole life. I went to the 2008 Olympic trials to put it into how like long my running career has been. But obviously, it's pivoted in different ways. So it was a dream of mine to make the Olympics. I definitely didn't, obviously, and that was a little hard to choke down, but life went on, and this crazy sport of obstacle course racing just honestly fell in my lap. It was like an ex-boyfriend wanted to do something like fun and healthy together, and he was like, this weekend we should like sign up for this obstacle course race. And I was like, it's a new relationship, so you're kind of open to doing like whatever. Okay, yeah, sure, we'll do this thing. I thought it was kind of weird, but yeah, we did it, and I just remember, to me, it just gave running a whole new. It put running in a whole new light. All of a sudden, all the things that stressed me out about running, the split times, just the rigidity of it, the boring terrain, all that stuff just evaporated, and all of a sudden I'm like in the woods with all these like really intense people, like doing all these things that I used to do when I was a kid again, and like having so much fun. Yeah, I had instant success in it. We decided to, my boyfriend at the time, him and I decided to like go big. And so our go big was going to the States and competing. So, that the States being the bigger brother to Canada. So we're like, let's go to Vegas. We started traveling all over the world, Vegas and anywhere that we wanted to, living in Canada, right? So we're like, where do we want to go explore in the States? Let's go to Vegas. Let's see the Vegas part, and let's go to Arizona. Let's do these things. So fun. I came into the sport when we had the Rose Wetzels and Amelia Boone at that time. And they were like, all of a sudden, like beating Amelia Boone and Rose Wetzel, that was my new Olympics. And I like went out and I was just so determined to I just got that competitive itch back that I hadn't had, and I hadn't had a clear goal in fitness, or in sports since, way when I was younger, trying to hopefully one day make the Olympics. So it was a good transition for me. And it's one thing led to a next, like, it's like, I'm not bored you with the super like long story, but I'm still in just such like, I still can't believe how many things just worked out through, like, obviously I was training my butt off, but NBC Sports and ESPN like came to the sport. So I got exposure through that. They started giving away prize money. All of a sudden, next thing I know, I stacked on enough contracts with nutrition companies and watches and sunglasses and this and that, layered these on together. And all of a sudden I can leave my corporate job and actually make a go for this. So I took a big risk. Obviously it was like probably the biggest risk of my life yet. Except I wouldn't call having a kid a risk, but it's a bigger change having a kid than being a professional athlete, I will say. But I'll say I took that risk and I just devoted everything to it and had a blast racing. And Jessica and I, saw a need for some experts in the sport. And so we started this business, and it's been just totally fun. I can't say enough about how much the sport has given me in terms of being able to have a career that doesn't feel like work, as cliche and corny as that sounds. It's very true.
It's been so cool watching Faye's journey in OCR, because like Faye and I went to high school together. We've known each other forever. And I just remember, Faye, you kind of not really knowing what to do athletically after running ended, and you were working as a personal trainer and stuff. And it's like, it honestly felt like all of our friends agreed, like this was made for you. like Faye's always been a runner, but always been a gym person, always been so smart with creating cool training programs and like just using the tools she has. And all of a sudden, like this challenge was just like handed to you, kind of like the sport suddenly existed. And it was just like, oh man, it was so cool watching that.
Yeah, no, it's been super fun. And getting to do it with Jess too. I like having, people in my corner that are, smarter than me, better than me in some ways, but we really feed off each other's strengths. So it's more fun when you get to do something as a team, I think, than just like being in your apartment by yourself, writing fitness programs. So it's been fun kind of having a collaborating approach and working together.
Hey, can you talk about that point when you made the decision I'm going to not throw away, but I'm going to turn my back on this traditional career path I've kind of got, and I'm going to become a professional athletic trainer, or I'm sorry, not an athlete, a professional athlete with sponsors and competing. And if I don't win races, then there's a risk I lose sponsors. And it's like, I got to perform. I got to, like, can you talk about that? Because that's kind of a scare. It seems like.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, thanks for asking that question, because I actually like sharing this story, because I think I did it in a really smart way. And I'm actually really impressed now looking back at that I was so savvy. It's probably from, listening to my family's advice. And I have a younger sister who's way smarter than me. But basically, I worked in oil and gas, in supply chain management, procurement, buyer, contract management, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I had an opportunity. So I ended up placing third at the World Championships. That was the one. I don't know if people follow the sport for years, but that was the one where Lindsay and I had like a photo finish at the end. We were separated by .00 something of a second. fractions of a second. Anyways, after that performance making the podium at Worlds, I did have some sponsors come my way. And like I said, it was like a math equation. I was adding up all these little tiny deals. And I went to, my mom actually worked at this company. I think that's probably how I got the job at this company, to be honest. And so she was high up in this company. And you can imagine her 20-something-year-old daughter saying, hey, mom, like, thanks for getting me this like cool, sick job in oil and gas. But like, I think I'm going to just say like, see you later, because I want to go run in the mud. So I knew she was not going to be happy, and I love my mom and never wanted to disappoint her. So what I ended up doing is I ended up telling my manager at the time that I wanted the summer off, the 4 months off. And I wanted to take a leave of absence and come back and get my job back. Everyone is like, what the hell? Like, that's completely unheard of. Like, there's no way. We were in a bit of a recession with oil and gas. Like, they're like, if you can finagle this, Faye, like, holy shit. But I did. I approached my manager and I said, like, I got this thing, because that was how long the NBC Spartans series was. It was 4 months. It was like from Montana to World Championship. So I took those 4 months off, and I had the time of my life, and I did the series, and I was on TV, and NBC was like filming me all over the time. I actually had a company, which is TELUS, which is a network in Canada, that they actually did like a documentary on me called She is Spartan. Look it up. It's hilarious. I had all this media, and I had the time of my life. 4 months ended. I had to go back to procurement. I cannot tell you the depression I went through when I stepped into the first week back and I got my job back. And I remember I was like so behind, and I was writing purchase orders and data entry. And I had these engineers like talking about all this technical jargon. And I'm just like, holy shit. I went to the bathroom and I started crying my eyes out. I was like, this sucks. I just had this amazing experience, and frick, I'm back here again. Like, how did this happen? And I ended up just I talked to my mom. I said, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not coming back. Like, I think that I can make the go at this. Like, I just had a gut feeling that like through hard work and hustle, like I'll be able to piece enough money together to support myself. And I did. And I partnered with Jess, and we started this, and we're both doing this full time now, and we don't have other jobs, and it's incredible. But yeah, it's a huge risk. So I guess like the moral of the story is risks are good, but like you have to do it carefully. I would never, like, some people would be like, heard this story in the past when I used to talk about it a lot. They'd be like, oh, do you think I should like stop my job? And do you think Spartan's going to pay me to race? And I'm like, no, you have to, like, first of all, Spartan's not paying anyone to race right now. So no one do that. But I'm just saying, like, I guess if you're in a situation that you don't love, like, figure out a way to get out of it.
How long did you last when you came back?
I think like a couple weeks.
You know, it's risky, but man, it's also risky. Like, am I going to spend the next 60 years of my life in a job I don't like? And yeah, maybe I have a nicer house, and maybe like it is a little more, but like you gotta live. We only have like so many years. You gotta live.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it too, is not to get on, this is like a whole other tangent, but if you can figure out a way to make like your costs not so outrageous, like you can, like, sometimes you don't need that, 2,000, 3,000, K job. Like sometimes you can, not need to do these jobs that necessarily, maybe they pay more, but they're not really what you love. If you decide, like, be a little bit more crafty with where you're spending your money. Because like when I was just obstacle racing, things were tight, and I realized that a lot of the things that like I thought I needed, I didn't really need, and actually removing them from my life made everything less stressful, because I wasn't constantly having to, do things I didn't like work-wise to be able to support the lifestyle that I thought I needed. So that's another side tangent. And I can't say that now because I choose to live in the most expensive city in the world. So it's like, I obviously value flashy things as well, but it's just something to consider too when you're thinking about what you want your life to look like, I guess.
There's seasons. Like, we've all had those ramen years where we're, I was telling my son, like, yeah, buy 10 cups of ramen for $1. Now it's 6 for $1. Like, what's up?
I know.
Trust me, Olympic stream athlete. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
cool seeing the different like sport marketing dynamics between an Olympic sport that's like more mainstream and like a niche sport that has like actually a much larger following, even though the depth is smaller. Like there's hundreds of countries that do track and field, fewer that do OCR, but it's like more palatable to like a US audience. And it's like, it's very interesting. I've learned a lot about marketing through Faye's experience versus like a track and field athletes.
Just when you guys started grid coaching, what were some of the differences or what were some of the like holes you guys were looking to fill, like that what maybe wasn't being covered that you're like, this is a spot for us where we can make a difference in training for the sport?
Well, like similar to Faye's foray into sport as an athlete, like we were kind of amongst the like earlier coaches to start coaching OCR athletes specifically, and there just wasn't good quality information. Like there's a lot of people guessing on how to train. There are a lot of people doing like very strange things. OCR is an interesting sport because it's a lot of people's first sport. A lot of people don't come from running backgrounds or strong strength and conditioning backgrounds. They come from maybe rec sport, maybe in high school, and then they're just kind of getting into it. And so we just saw a huge gap in quality information. And what we really saw was people were okay with the in the gym. Phase programs really are tailored to like obstacle completion and gaps. So like I think that they're probably better than like I know that they're better than just like a generic strength program, but we saw a huge gap in running because a lot of people were approaching OCR again from like a shorter multi-sport background, but trying to compete in these like multi-hour long races where really they should be training more like a marathoner or a half marathoner, and that just wasn't happening. You hear people try and compete for 5 hours on a weekend, but their long run was like 2-3 miles long. And their intervals were these short sprints that they do in a HIIT class, not tailored to like, again, endurance sport. So we were like, wait. All these people are competing in an endurance sport, but they're not training like endurance athletes, or they're not training like they need really specific dialed strength skills specific to the terrain that they're trying to conquer and the obstacles they're trying to get over. So we just saw a huge gap in like specificity to the sport.
No, that's a really interesting thing you said that OCR is a lot of people's first sport. The very first time I ever pinned a bib on my chest was at a Tough Mudder when I was like, late 20s, early 30s. That's an interesting point that I haven't thought about, that there's not a gap, but there's a lot of people who didn't compete in high school that are like, hey, this is something. I don't want to say later in life because it's like they're not 60, they're 30, maybe they're 25, but they got some catching up.
I think when you compete, like whatever sport you compete in, if you do it at a fairly high level, there's like an understanding that there's like an off season, a preseason, and you establish like this base of fitness. And then as you get closer to the events, you sharpen and you hone in on those skills. But it's all built off this foundation of like cardiovascular fitness, strength. And we need that to be able to do the other activities, right? Whether it's playing soccer or whether it's running an obstacle course race. And you don't really have that idea unless you've sort of been through a structured sporting background, whether it was a kid, whether it was high school, or whether it was college. And we take that for granted, I think, Jess and I, because we studied that in school, as we both studied like exercise science, and we also had hands-on experience always being on a training plan under the guidance of coaches, but people didn't have that. And another thing to sort of add to that is, I think that in obstacle racing, a lot of the marketing is around the obstacles, right? Spartan's not going to just like highlight the run, the 1 mile stretch between the monkey bars and the Z wall that everyone hates. They're not going to highlight that. They're going to highlight the obstacles. So people go into this sport thinking, I got to get good at obstacles, where I came into the sport looking at it from an outsider's perspective and saying, this is just a foot race with these things in the way. So I just got to do what I've always been good at doing, which is run really, really fast and get really, really fit. And I was able to do very well. So I think that that's just a shift of thinking about what the sport actually is that we were able to bring to our clients.
I mean, to be fair, the obstacles are cooler. They look cooler.
Hey.
I'm saying like the blood splashing and crawling under barbed wire and swinging from, I get it. I get why they do it, but you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it is a lot of people's first sport or first sport in a while is what makes it so popular, though, because a lot of people find meaning in it. They find a new identity, and it like really, really, really solidifies the OCR community because people didn't have that before. And it's exciting. You get to improve in a whole bunch of different areas, and you get to find people who are like you, who are doing the same thing, which is why we all love sport. But for many people, that's the first time they have that.
You know what?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And I just want to, Jess is exactly right. And I do just want to shout out to one of our athletes who actually wrote a book just on exactly talking about what we're talking about here, which is just the value that jumping into a sport that as an older person and the value it brings. And Will has it right here, so he'll be able to show it off. And Jess, I'm bad. I don't have it anywhere. It's somewhere in the best of motherhood. But yeah, so it's by Wendy Bounds, and it's called Not Too Late.
I'm I didn't know she was one of your athletes. That's very exciting.
Yeah, we love working with Wendy.
It's very excited for her. She wrote a book called Not Too Late: The Power of Pushing Limits at Any Age. I'm going to talk. I know she's talked with, I think, Mike and Caitlin from Obstacle Running Adventures, and I'm looking forward to talking with her about her book.
Awesome. Yeah, she's super articulate. Very, very interesting woman.
In fact, it comes out. It's on sale. Not too late. Gwendolyn Bounds. Faye, can you talk about if you were, you mentioned telling athletes like, hey, Spartan's not paying a lot right now. Don't do that. Don't do what I did. But what if someone's like, man, I'm pretty good at this running thing, and I think I've got a personality where I could go out to sponsors, and now social media is a lot different than it was when you started. Well, would you have any advice for someone thinking like, hey, man, maybe I do want to give up I don't like this grind. I don't like going into an office at 9 a.m. every Monday through Friday. What advice would you give someone who's thinking about maybe I have what it takes? Maybe I can do what Faye did and make a go of it. What would you say to that person?
Well, first, I would need to look into their checkings account and see how much savings they have. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I haven't, since I've been out of the game of making money through racing, I don't really know the appetite for sponsors right now. And if they're interested in this sport, just from a sort of a temperature that I've had over the last couple of years, I feel like they've been less interested. They've kind of came to the sport and maybe they're not getting a return on their investment by sponsoring these athletes. And so I don't know if there's the same dollar value contracts that were available in my time. But again, I haven't really looked into this because obviously I'm not searching to do that anymore. And I've got this going on. But I mean, I wish I could give you more of a motivating answer, but I mean, I think the simple thing is just keep working really, really, really hard at it. Make those connections, network, do everything you can but keep your day job. And the second, just like in my situation, when that passion flipped where it was making me just as much money as the career, then that's the time you can swap that out. But right now, my gut feeling is that it's a little bit risky and the sport's not quite there yet. Although we did hear from Joe DeSena, he was on a couple podcasts on our Nitty Gritty Training podcast a couple of weeks back. He did say that it's in the Olympics in 2028, which is that LA? I think it's LA. Yeah. So that could be really exciting, and that could definitely change the game. So if you feel that could be a potential for for your way to be a professional athlete, just like Jessica went to the Olympics and just like I was able to professional obstacle course race, there's no hurt in putting in the work now. Get yourself fit, get your A game on. Yeah. And all you need is some good luck and some good timing and things to kind of click in our industry.
Okay, so
Can I hop in?
Yeah, Jeff, please.
Yeah. One thing that I think a lot of people make a mistake of is thinking that you need to do this full time to be successful. And that's not true. Like, yeah, of course, the more time you have to recover, the better. And it is hard to recover if you're on your feet or you're really stressed. But even as I called it a professional track and field athlete because it's the easiest way to state it. But I was always in school doing a master's degree, or I was always working in grit coaching, which grew and grew and grew and grew. And I had lots of side jobs and stuff like that to support my running career. And I think that that's a lot of why I was successful is because I wasn't worried about finances to get to the races that I needed to get to, which is really important. All of a sudden, if you like you're lining up for a race and you're questioning, oh my God, was this worth the money? Like that's just another layer of stress when that's your job. And I had security in my sport because I knew that I was still progressing towards my future, which is also really important. It unloads a lot of stress. And I think that a lot of people glorify the thought that like, oh, a professional athlete, I just train and play all day and then I just like recover and it's the best. But I mean, your sport becomes your job. I mean, I watched Faye with her sponsorships. Faye is an incredibly talented woman at negotiating, at being charismatic, at networking, like she said. And like it's still a lot of work. It's just different work. Your role becomes marketing, your role becomes training, sure, but lots of people are training. It's not necessarily it's probably not what you, if you're listening to this, imagine it is. Not that it's not great, but it's not all rosy.
What I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's so true. I want to reiterate what Jess said. Like, I love that she pointed that out, that she was able to, go to the Olympics. I 100% agree. I think that I actually, when I decided to like just do this full time and not have any other thing going on, I actually drove myself really, really crazy. And I actually ended up overtraining and it actually in some ways hurt my performance. So having other stuff going on in your life is in your life is good. You could say that about anything. Like I'm a better mom because I, have time to work on my business and then I come back to my baby and I'm in a better mood and I'm better because to do something that's so intense 24/7 like breaks you down. It really does. I did want to say something else on that note. The marketing and the sponsorship deals. It's so funny just to like put it into perspective how like sometimes I still get offers. Like I got this offer to sign with this contract a couple months ago. And like now I just like don't even open the emails. Like I don't even even look at them or appeal to them because I'm so burnt out from that grind that like I can't even handle any of that anymore. Even if it's like a good deal. Sometimes my husband's like, why don't you turn that down? I'm like, I didn't even open it. I just can't anymore. So it's not as glorified as it seems. So yeah.
That's how good she is at it. She makes it look easy.
What I'm hearing both say is that it's a lot of work. Like it's different work than sitting in an office or doing procurement, but it's a lot of work. Like you're not only are you training, but you're having to do the business side of it too with the sponsorships and the and I think honestly, like there's more opportunity with social media now, especially for like, younger fit people, that are like fun to watch on social media, but that's a lot of work too. You got to learn to video edit. You got to learn to the mark. It's I don't think there's an easy option. If you're like, oh, I just like running. I just want to run and try to work out and be like this isn't the NBA or Major League Baseball where you're going to like, if you just perform on the court or on the field, you're going to get paid a lot of money. That's not the case in obstacle course racing.
No, not any neither. Absolutely. I was actually dropped from my running shoe contract after I went to the Olympics because they decided to put their money into like run groups instead. They were getting more traction on social media and like in general marketing of people who are actually buying shoes from like hobby joggers and like bloggers and stuff than professional athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I totally, Jeff. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole about my opinions about social media, but it's very cool. And I'm very happy that we've been able to leverage it and grow business from it. And yay for us. But I just find it so sad nowadays that, credentials and success sometimes are just not even are so overlooked. It just becomes about like this person on social media who looks really hot and who has the best marketing and who uses the cool colors and the trendy templates that have the bells and whistles, and they're the ones that can grow this business. When like sometimes I miss the old days of like, did you go to school? Did you get, all that sort of stuff seems like it's less relevant, and social. Yeah. And I know so many people that don't know anything about fitness, food, whatever, and are crushing it just because of their social media account. And I think that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
That is a good point. Talking about credentials, what are your guys' credentials? What are you, Jess, you talked about training for your master's. What are your guys' athletic training credentials?
Yeah, so I am an NCCP certified performance endurance coach. So that's the kind of like the coaching curriculum in Canada to become because I coach track and field at a university as well. I am a certified exercise physiologist with high performance specialization, which is the top level of exercise physiology certification in Canada. You need like a university degree to get that. And then I also have a master's degree in exercise physiology and health sciences from the University of Calgary, which is the number 2 sports school in North America. It went down.
What is number 1? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure. I just know that it's number 2 now, but it used to be number 1.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have my I have a degree in exercise science or kinesiology. I think kinesiology is more of a Canadian term, so I always say exercise science. I also have my CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, although I need to put an asterisk next to that because I don't believe I can still say I have that, because I definitely didn't commit to doing this continuous education credits, so that one's like a little star next to. And I also have my functional movement screening systems, which is a strength and conditioning platform that was developed by Dr. Gray Cook, it's so funny because it was one of those things that was just a quick little certificate that I did. It wasn't like a big deal or anything, but it's sometimes those small little weekend courses that actually are the most hands-on and practical. And I still use a lot of stuff that I've learned from that class in our coaching. And that's, so if anyone's interested in doing that, it's not super hard to get, but it's functional movement system. It's an awesome one just for functional fitness if you're training athletes or just the general population. Want to move better, feel better.
Jess, we were talking about the Olympics. Of the 3 of us, you're the only one who's competed in the Olympics. What does, if someone's an OCR athlete, and I know it's part of pentathlon and there's a whole deal, but it just as far as training for the Olympics, what does that look like? The training for what was your training like? What was the process like getting onto the team? What did that look like for you when you did it?
Yeah, so for me in Canada, well, worldwide, you need to run a certain time standard, and then you need to place top 3 in the country at your trials. That's how Canada does it. So at the time standard was 15:25. It's quite a bit faster now because of super shoes and depth of competition and stuff like that, but that's what it was for me. So I had to run that time in the Olympic year, which was very stressful. So very important point to make is that maybe not a lot, but many athletes like making the Olympics is so much about being in the right place and the right fitness at the right time. Like showing up healthy and like fit in that year is so hard. So I ran that standard 2 years before the Olympics. I ran it the year before the Olympics, the year of the Olympics. So stressful because I think I had 4 injuries in the year leading up that took like 3 or 4 weeks to recover from. So I was water running like 3 or 4 weeks before my last shot to run this time standard, even though I'd run way under it many times in the preceding years. I just hadn't ticked that box, which was so stressful. Like you can be like it was a no-brainer that I was good enough to go, but I wasn't good enough because I wasn't good enough at that time on that day. And that is the crux of making the Olympics, is being able to show up and perform like at a very, very, very specific time, because you get like one shot. So I did do that, thankfully. I think I got my time standard by like a couple tenths or hundredths. Like it was very much down to the wire. And then I had to run in our trials and place in the top three, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, again, I'll iterate that the process, that was my process of making the Olympics, but basically you need to be the best you can be, and you need to be lucky, and you need to set yourself up really, really well for a roller coaster in the year of, because like a lot of crazy things happen when a lot of people are under pressure, both in terms of great performances and not so great performances, and it's a very, very stressful time. But I'm just babbling now because it's at the forefront of my mind. But I think the crux of making the Olympics again is showing up healthy, showing up able to perform, which are way harder than you would think they are, but also being able to control what you can control. And that is so hard because the objective is so clear. Like with all the athletes we coach, we're always telling them like try to detach from like having a podium goal because you can't control who shows up to the races. Like have that as your goal, but not your sole goal, because like it, you can't control if Amelia Boone or Faye Stenning or Lindsay Webster or Nicole Merkel decide to run age group. Like that's not in your control. And yeah, they're probably going to beat you. So it's so hard to suddenly have your only goal being an objective goal because failure is very clear and it's very black and white. I ran in the Rio Olympics, but I didn't make Tokyo, and that like was objectively a failure. Process wise, it was not because I did everything I could to get there. I had a huge injury through COVID. I cross trained in my garage for 2 years. I did a water run in a river and tied myself to a tree. I built a whole gym. I sourced all this equipment. I sought out the best doctors I could during COVID, and our restrictions were much harder in Canada. You couldn't even cross the border to try and race. Like it was a huge mess. And so process wise, I was successful because I did everything I could, but objectively I failed. And so that's like a very hard thing to wrap your head around as an Olympic athlete. And that's the hard part.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to jump in there because I was very much like watching Jess go through this whole phase. And like, I just like, honestly, it just seemed so hard. And I felt stressed out for her. I mean, there were so many times like I would come to this sporting facility just to sit on the side of the pool and like watch her water run because I honestly felt so bad for her. I was like, this poor girl has to sit. We're not talking, oh, I got to cross train for 45 minutes. We're talking about hours and hours a day spent in a pool, water running at a vigorous intensity to try and stimulate the same training effect that you get from running day in and day out, just to hopefully cross your fingers that your injury recovers and you're able to show up at this race and still have fitness. And then, take off inches of fractions of a second after working like many, many years. Like it's really, really challenging. And I think that it's not for everyone. And even if I had the talent, which I don't know if I could do that because even just being an outsider, I was stressed out for her. I'm like, I remember she'd sometimes come visit me, and it was like, I almost would want to like treat her like my baby. I was like, Jess, like, do you need some more water? Do you think you're hydrated? Like, I don't want to dehydrate you. Yeah. She was like this, like, are you hungry? Should we give you another granola bar? What time's your bedtime? Like, I was because what people don't realize is when you're at that level of athlete, every little decision you make or do not make moves the needle forward or backwards. And if you're training to hit a specific time down to the fractions of a second, that could be the difference of making it or not making it. Just those split second decisions that you're having to make every single hour of every single day. It's just very stressful. Yeah. I'm stressed out. Oh my gosh, thinking about it.
So I think that in the OCR world, like people are very objective oriented, but if you're going to make a true push for the Olympics, you need to become more process oriented. And that's something that I haven't seen in this world too much yet because there aren't a huge depth of elite athletes yet. But that's something you have to wrap your head around if you're going to try and get longevity in the sport. My running career was very long because I was pretty process oriented. 7 years is a really long time I received money from the government for 7 years to compete at track, which is like very long. So like you need to be able to be okay with sometimes failing your objectives in order to have longevity.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think that I'm curious. Last thing I'll say on this: if the sport goes to the Olympics, they're going to need to make time standards. Like you're going to have to be able to do this obstacle course race at a certain time to make it to the Olympics. I'm assuming that's how it's going to work.
Maybe,
and I think,
or it might just be rankings in your country. Like there's a couple different ways.
Right. But then things get really real in the sport, because you can't hide behind like, oh, that course took me 5 hours because it was at altitude and it was XYZ, or, oh, this obstacle was different. Like it becomes everyone is playing the same game. And it's like, all right, let's go, So we'll see what happens. I'm curious. I'm glad I will still be alive then.
Jess, when you talk about focusing on the process versus the results, it's a very stoic philosophy. It translates directly into, I don't want to say real life, but like your whole life. Like if I am getting up early and if I'm working hard and if I'm sales prospecting, like maybe I don't make all the sales I want, but I did everything I could. I put myself in the best position, and maybe next week it kicks in, and maybe like I get more sales. Like it's the maturity to realize like I need to focus on the journey. I need to focus on what I can control, and maybe I get on the podium, and maybe I get fifth place because Faye showed up and Rose showed up and Nicole showed up, and like I can't control but maybe the race is somewhere hard to get to, and I show up and no one else shows up, and I won the whole thing. That philosophy translates directly into like for the rest of your life, like whether you're an athlete or not. It translates into parenting, it translates into business, it translates into literally everything we do as people. And it's cool you got to like an intense, you had to learn that for your career, and you can go the rest of your life.
Yeah, I before Rio, one day I remember I had like a 2 hour long elliptical session, and I was stretching in the gym after. There's an athlete gym that I go to in Calgary because we're a huge winter sport hub. So lots of other national team athletes were training in this gym at the same time. And this girl came up to me. She was a speed skater and she'd competed in Vancouver and another Winter Olympics as well. She's like, "Hey Jess, how's it going?" And I was like, "It's going bad." like I literally have to race in like 3 weeks, and I just ellipticaled for 2 hours. Like that is not ideal. And I was like tearing up. I was stressed. Well, maybe it made it sound like I'm very good at this. This is hard. This is hard stuff. I'm not perfect at this. And she goes, "Jess, before the Vancouver Olympics, our team motto was," this is so corny, but she goes, "TNT, today, not tomorrow. Write it on your hand. If you can do everything you can today, tomorrow is going to fall into place." And that was so liberating for me because I was like, "You're right. I can do the best elliptical I can do today. I can do the best rehab I can do today. I can do the best sleeping I can do today. And then I can do that again tomorrow, and then again tomorrow. And then maybe the best the next day is a walk run. And then maybe the best the next day is managing my emotions during my first rusty track workout. And that's the best for that day. And then that's like literally all I can do. And that kind of gave me the ability to like release this like desire to try and control something I really couldn't.
That is so good. Today, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
I love
TNT. Dynamite.
There's a Bible verse that says, "Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got its own worries. Tomorrow's got its own problems. Worry about today. Today is the only." And hey, you're like, "I'm glad I'm going to be alive for the Olympics." We're not promised tomorrow. We're not. I hope we're here. I hope we're here. I hope all three of us are here, and I hope we get to watch them. We'll do a live stream. We'll watch it. But we're not. We're all breathing right now. So hopefully we have the rest of today. I love that. Today, not tomorrow. That's great, Jen. Hey, last thing before we go, talking about your guys' clients. A lot of people kind of start on the entry level, like they show up with their worst shoes, and they have like matching T-shirts, and they have duct tape around there. And then like as they do more races, they start doing it, and they're like, "Hey, I want to take this more seriously." What do your clients like? What does an average client look like for you? Like what level of fitness are they at, or the people who come to you? Like, what clients are you looking to bring on for training?
Well, our favorite part of doing individual coaching is that it lets us bring on a huge range. And so every single person's like a different puzzle, you know? I'd say sometimes we get feedback that people think that our coaching, like you need to be elite to get our coaching, and that is not true at all. Definitely not. I'd say the majority of our clients are age groupers, very, very different levels of fitness, very different starting points. Some people run many times a week. Some people barely run. Some people go to the gym all the time. Some people have never touched a weight. So a very, very big variety of people, but their commonality is that they are motivated and driven by a desire to get better. Most compete, like most do have races on their schedule, and so that's kind of their guiding star. And they're just excited to improve. They feel gaps in either strength or running or both, or how to put it together, or want advice.
And then Faye, what does training look like? Are they on Zooms with you, or is it you email them once a week? What does the interaction look like? What does that just typically look like for your clients?
Yeah, so we've tried to provide like a range of options everywhere from like we have different sort of tiers. And so obviously they come at different price points, but basically you can have anything from, all right, we write you a plan, and all plans are customized. We always have an initial consult with the client where we just try and get to know every little detail about them. And then so the some clients are on where we write them a month program at a time. And then we communicate on a monthly basis. And then we have couple different tiers from there, where our highest tiered athlete who wants more like one-on-one coaching can literally ding us whenever they want. And we can hop on a Zoom with them literally as many times as they want, answer emails. We're their cheerleader, we're their like buddy. So yeah, you guys can check out like all our service offerings on our website. But yeah, we've found as we've gone through the years of coaching that kind of we need to make it customized because every individual is so different. But of course, everyone has different budgets. So we've tried to make options for a variety of different people. And we even have options if you're on a lower tier that we're just talking once a month, but you want to have that extra pre-race call. We also have like affordable add-ons that like click the link, let's talk to Faye before Utah. And that's really cheap and affordable. So there's just a lot of different options.
We individualized everything, including your services.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of work it's a lot of work for us because my day, it's like, oh, John just told me he's going to be on a work trip. So I need to like redo his strength because now he's just bringing his 26-pound kettlebell and his green blue ball and foam roller, but he wants to do this run. And it's like, I'm coordinating around literally his like corporate job gym. And it's like, it gets a lot, but it's kind of what we've decided to do because I'm just so against cookie cutter fitness plans because they just don't really work. And I've never followed one, but I just like how can you tell all these people to do the same thing? Everyone needs something different based on their injury history, their body, their races they're training for, their time, blah, 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 blah. So yeah.
It's a fun puzzle.
Kind of discouraging when you're like, I'm taking my fitness seriously. It's summer's coming up, I'm going on vacation, and you go to a hotel gym and there's like one machine and like two 12-pound like dumbbells, and you're like, oh man, okay, like I'm just gonna do push-ups. Like, I don't know what's going on here.
Which is not terrible. Like taking a little break is totally fine, and just doing something is infinitely better than nothing. But yeah, it is kind of discouraging when you're in a groove and something goes sideways.
Jess, how can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can find us at grit_coaching on Instagram. We're on Facebook as well if you search Grit Coaching. And our podcast is called the Nitty Gritty Training Podcast. And yeah, you can find us on our website, www.gritcoaching.net, not .com.
Hey, we didn't really talk about the podcast. You want to just tease people? Like, what should they? You mentioned Joe DeSena was on recently. Like, what's coming up in the podcast?
Yeah, I can't remember what we got. I know we have it planned out. Jess, what do we have coming up?
Well, we've got our wonderful athlete Wendy, I think this week, telling us all about her book and her journey into obstacle course racing. We've got a female founder of a female-specific running shoe coming up, talking about sports science research in women and differing biomechanics in female runners. And then I think we've put together a podcast on post-race debriefs in the pipeline as well. We try and get a mixture of guests who are relevant in our worlds, experts, and also putting together informational podcasts on topics that we think anyone could learn something from.
What's the name of the podcast?
The Nitty Gritty Training Podcast.
Gritty Training Podcast. It's on Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, it's on everything.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Faye and Jess, any last thoughts before we go?
No, thanks so much for having us, Will. This was fun. It's fun. It's been a while since I think we've shared our story of how we started this business and where we came from. It's kind of fun. It feels good to just sort of share. I just reminisce about just the good times that I had in the sport and just the friendship that Jessica and I had and that we've turned into Grit Coaching. So thanks for allowing us to rehash it again.
Jess, any last thoughts?
No, thank you for having us. Like Faye said, it's always fun to talk about ourselves. And I totally agree. It's fun to reminisce. And thank you for what you're doing for the sport.
Faye Stenning, Jess O'Connell. You can find more at gritcoaching.net. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Faye Stenning and Jess O'Connell for appearing on the show today. Well done, you two. Come back anytime. Don't forget to listen to Obstacle Running Adventures tomorrow for day 2 of 30 podcasts hath September. 30 podcasts in 30 days from the OCR report. Very excited about it. Check it out. And don't forget to subscribe to all the other shows. Nitty Gritty Training, Obstacle Running Adventures, World's Toughest Podcast, OCR Talk, Strength and Speed, Fran and Carlo get OCR adjacent, and Jack Goris has the podcast. You can find them all on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Or go to our Instagram at the OCR Report for easy links to find all those shows. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And shoot me an email, Will at the OCR Report. Love to hear from you. So good. So good. I'll talk with you guys soon. Go spend time with someone you love.